we recording now? Mine says recording stop. I heard recording stop, but it's recording.
We are ready to go.
Oh, okay. All right, good enough then. Okay, we will start. Join palms and bow. Four great vows. I vow to deliver innumerable
sentient beings.
I vow
to cut off endless fixations.
I vow to master limitless approaches to Dharma. I vow to attain supreme Buddhahood. Welcome to you all. You know, some of you are getting a double dose of me this week, and I want to continue on with what I was talking about a little bit yesterday about Manjushri. Seemed to kind of inspire to talk a little bit about right view and what right view means, and what mind work is. Mind work and right view are really connected. Right view is the realization as to how mind works. Mind work is working towards that realization and developing an understanding as to how mind works. So when we do this, we work in it in a different way. Let me see if I can do this. I don't know if you have to let me in to do the whiteboard. I should have told you that, Santha.
Let me check on this, Gilbert.
Okay. So in any case, right view is let's say a more direct practice of Buddha Dharma. It comes from a different orientation. Normally, what we practice is a practice of trying to perfect this body and mind, and we use all sorts of things that we use, from the three jewels to the four great vows, the five precepts, the six paramitas, the eightfold path, the 37 factors of enlightenment. The ancients in the sutras have said that these are secondary paths. And I want to be clear about that, because I'm not telling you don't practice that. I'm just saying that it is what is known as a secondary path, or a second level to right view. When one practices with right view, then the mind is clear of the orientation that this world, the samsaric world, is a fabrication of mind. And we start with the premise that all things are created by mind. This has been referenced in the sutras and in the treatises in many different ways. Sometimes it's referred to the inconceivable. This is very hard for us to understand, because we go, I don't understand what inconceivable is. Well, that's the whole point. You can't understand it. So then you'll hear me say quite often, you cannot know it, but it knows you. And you go, well, it knows me, then what is it using to know me? Mind. But you go, you mean my mind? No, mind. And so what we try to do is we try to cut mind up. And that's the problem, because now we're practicing from the samsaric side. I think I see that you said share screen. Is that possible? No.
Yes, you can share now.
I can share?
Yes.
All right. Let me see if I can do that. I get to a whiteboard, but I don't think I'm skilled enough to do that. So I don't have that as breaking out. Oh well. noble effort. I'll keep trying to learn how to do this. Share screen. Okay. I'm trying. Let me see if I can do this. No, sorry about that. What I wanted to do is to show kind of graphically how we practice from a very limited range of the experiences of samsara. And with this limited range, we try to understand what is beyond this range. It is not, we're not capable of doing it. It's like a dog can hear sounds higher than us. We cannot reach that level to hear that sound. So our senses are limited. We only see certain kinds of ways of seeing things with our eyes. And that's just simply interpreted as shapes and colors and textures that we see. But we're very limited. It's interesting because in the practice of Qigong, the skill set is one that expands that kind of sight to be able to see things like heat, illness, even the practice of somebody where you could see an aura around them, or you can see something dark around them. So it's very interesting, but we take this world to be real and everything around it via our senses. But our senses are impermanent, they're empty. But we try to give meaning to everything via samsara. Samsara only follows the rules of this world. So in samsara, we know if we toss something up, it will come down. Why? Because in samsara, there is a rule of gravity. And there's certain rules of different things, but they're so limited and they're only apply to the samsaric world. We cannot know what is beyond that. This is why when I refer to the Buddhas and the billion Buddhas in the billion Buddha worlds, it's beyond our comprehension to be able to do this. This is what happened in the chapter 39 of the Vatamsaka Sutra, where Maitreya, Milafo, took Sudana to see the myriad worlds and experiences, transcended time, where the past, present, future are all simultaneously appearing. It's impossible for us to know that, to be able to experience this with this body in the limited part of samsara. But this very mind that's listening right now, it is capable of doing that. It is capable. Why? Because this very mind that you're using right now to listen is the mind that created all of the appearances that you see. And this is why there is an ability for this liberation of all sentient beings, simply because this mind that we use is not other than the Buddha nature. We don't know that. We hear it, but we don't understand it. We don't practice in this way. We practice to perfect this corporal body, this meatball, to try to make it say, I don't want chocolate. I don't want a donut. I don't need that. You know, I don't need a Mercedes Benz. A Porsche will do fine. I don't need a big house. I don't need this, or I want that. I want all of these things that are coming up. But when they talk about this Mani Pearl, this wish-fulfilling gem, this wish-fulfilling gem is a gem that grants all wishes. And what would it grant? What could it possibly grant? There's a story that I often tell about this one master who sat on a rock right by a lake on a full moon night, clear night. And as he was sitting there meditating, he had put his robe and his slippers down to his side, and a thief came and snuck up and took his robe and slippers. The master, he knew this, and he just said, it was a pity that I could not give him this moon. It is what we do as bodhisattvas, that we see this pity and we want to give the moon. Maybe we got just a little peek in realization, but we want to share that realization with others. This is the wish-fulfilling gem. Why? It takes all suffering. Why does it take away all suffering? Because you don't crave anymore. You don't desire. You have a vow, but the vow is set into motion. We do not cling to the vow. We put it into motion via action, like Samantabhadra, in the activity. Avalokiteswara is the compassion that comes from Manjusri, in the wisdom. Those work together along with the activity. And so we begin to see that this is how we should accord our conduct. I am not saying that you should not practice any of the things that I said, from the 3 jewels to the 37 factors of enlightenment. Please, nobody ever say that Gilbert says you don't have to practice that. The difference is, when one is practicing from the samsara, it is like the student that was sitting there meditating, trying to become enlightened. When we practice from the other side, it is like the master polishing the tile to make it a diamond, to show clearly, you cannot do it this way. The Dharma cannot be taught. Who are you going to teach the Dharma to? Wouldn't that be inconsistent with Buddha Dharma, that everything is illusory? We scratch our heads and say, so why do we do this? Why do we practice in this way? And there was a story of a young monk, and the master told him, actually, I have nothing to teach you. And the young monk, he was scratching his head and saying, Shifu, if you have nothing to teach me, then why am I learning from you? And the master said, you are learning from me until you realize I have nothing to teach you. This is important. It's not just a joke. It is important to understand. It doesn't mean that we do not continue to follow the Buddhas and study. What it means is that we are properly oriented as to how things are, the way things are, and we're clear about it. And when we see it, we extend beyond a Theravadan doctrine to see that beyond this there's emptiness, and beyond emptiness is the Buddha nature. When we begin to practice in accord with the Buddha nature, then we're not far from it. It is just there in that present moment. We use the perception of the Buddha mind, not the perception of a sentient being. These two are one and the same, but also different. And you go, there it goes again with a Chan. It appears to be a contradiction. How can you say that? I didn't say anything, actually. But when we see it, we know that the Buddha perception is different from samsara because samsara is limited in its range of perception of senses. Eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, mind. It's limited to whatever's happening and in accordance with causes and conditions and karmic forces. The Buddha mind is not limited to those things. In fact, the karma is non-existent, yet the Buddha mind is in harmony with it. And why is the Buddha mind in harmony with it? Because it is the Buddha mind. Pratika Samappada, causes and conditions never fail. It is just the Buddha mind. So even the karma, even emptiness, is absorbed in the right view of looking at things, and is why we practice mind work. We practice from the other side. We see the things clearly. It is ours to lose moment to moment. So even if I explain how to meditate, the way I explain meditation is you start as if you were in Las Vegas and you have a big stack of chips and you're sitting there and you're meditating. Every time your mind moves and follows something, the stack of chips gets less and less and less until you finally tap out. But in the next moment, the chips appear and you start again. You can't lose. You can't lose this. You can never lose it. You might misplace it, but you can never lose it. And I remember I used to have someone that I would say, I can't find something. I can't find my keys. Did you lose your keys? I didn't lose my keys. I just don't know where they're at, but I haven't lost them. They're still there somewhere. Wherever they're at, they still belong to me. And this is the way with the mind. Whatever, even if you think you lost your mind, and some of you, especially in this day and age, are probably professing that you might be losing your mind, you can still find it. It's just right here. It's as if you went out into the sun and you lost your shadow. How is that? You can't lose your shadow. It's in the nature of things. And the same is with mind. When we understand mind work, it is seeing moment to moment to moment that everything is appearing in accordance with Pratika Samappada. Everything that has happened up until that time is appearing in accordance with Pratika Samappada. Everything that will happen in the future will be in accordance with Pratika Samappada. Now, today, one of my students in the mind work was asking and saying, how do we practice this way? Are we like automatic or what? I mean, do we have a choice in this? And essentially that was the essence, of trying to figure out exactly, if we have no thought, are we like nothing? No, there's an esoteric aspect, a profound aspect of this, in terms of that even the appearances are permeated with mind. They are constructed from the fabric of mind, but we do not cut them and then say, this is Gilbert's mind, this is Sento's mind, this is this person's mind, whatever. We don't do that. It is just mind. And it is this thusness that keeps getting banged on in the sutras. They keep talking about this thusness. And then they confuse you to no end. They'll say Tathagata and Tathagata. And you go, well, what's the difference? Well, one says, thus come one. And the other one says, thus go one. What? That doesn't make any sense. Well, it doesn't make any sense in the samsaric world, but with Buddha mind, it is the only way that one can say this. It is representing that the mind is here and everything goes with the mind, everything comes with the mind. There's no difference there. There's no duality. But if we try to say coming and going, then it confuses us to no end. So we have to keep working on this mind work. In mind work, it is not simply an intellectual exercise. It is not simply, trying to probe the Tian Tai or Huayan school or Yogacara and trying to look at it like some kind of an intellectual scholar. If you do that, then you will only get fool's gold. If you practice in the right way, then there is a proper practice. When I talk about to contemplate, it does not mean the contemplation of cogitation, of thinking about something. It means simply allow the mind to be mind. Do not block it. Do not create obstructions in the present moment that inhibit the mind from functioning perfectly. So when we see things in a clear way, it will work in a proper way. Things in the past may still resound in the mind, where somebody will say, like in my office, they're saying, "Oh, I'm going to get you a bunch of donuts if you come in tomorrow." That's how my office is plying me to come into work. I'm trying to stay at home, and they're baiting me with donuts. And in the past, I'd go, "Well, let me think about it." Okay, but now I just go, "Thank you very much, but I don't really need that." This is a major monolithic progress for Gilbert. And so this is, as we begin to practice how things work, little by little, we accord with causes and conditions. The donuts are there. The donuts you develop a craving because your body craves this sugar. But to a diabetic, it's like eating poison. So you have to look differently at things than what you were looking at from before. We're all upside down with what we're doing. So we try. So we have to see, how we practice, what we say, the words that we say. Do we really need to say those words? The actions that we do. Do we really need to do those actions? Do we really need to have certain thoughts in our mind? We understand the practice of keeping the mind clear, and this is from the other side, the samsaric side, where we keep the mind clear of unwholesome thoughts and don't bring up unwholesome thoughts, and we maintain wholesome thoughts and we give rise to wholesome thoughts. That's not bad. But remember, from the very beginning, there was no such thing as wholesome and unwholesome. So if we use our inherent wisdom, then we start with mind. And we use all of these 37 factors of enlightenment and all these other things that we practice as our backup. And as we begin to practice in the proper way, then our activities will reflect all of those without any thought whatsoever of conforming our actions to these activities. They will naturally arise because they reflect. So we say, how does the ocean get its blue color? Anybody know? I'm sure you guys know this. You must have learned it like in third grade or something. Nobody know this. Let's ask like somebody really like scientific. Michael, how does the ocean get its blue color?
It's blue color reflected from the sky. it's a scattering. There's different frequencies are different scattered in different amounts, and remains a blue at the end, which is reflected by the ocean.
Oh, it's reflected. It's reflected from the sky. We could use this as an analogy that it's reflected from mind itself. And so when we see that everything that appears, we look at the sea and say it's blue. But if we get some water in our hand, is it blue? No. And we go, what happened to the blue? If you scoop up water and it's blue, then get out of the water, okay? Because there's something going on wrong. But we cannot see it from this samsaric viewpoint. We cannot see yet it's there. The reflection of mind is always there. You have to begin to practice in this way. You have to see. I can talk to you all day long about all these other things. But mind work is really where you make great inroads in the practice. You cannot turn all of these other things into a diamond. Why should you have to? The mind is already a diamond. We don't turn it into anything. You don't become enlightened to anything. If anybody says that they're enlightened, and if they're, they call themselves a grand, using the vernacular from yesterday, a grand poobah, meaning just somebody who thinks so highly of themselves, run. Because this is not the way it is. And so actually yesterday I elevated Harry from a seventh Dan Poobah to an eighth Dan Poobah. So if you ever want to ask him questions, he's very, very skilled now. So, but anyway, it isn't in this way. The ordinary mind, the mundane mind, is just the Buddha mind. This is one of the first realizations that one can encounter, is just this mind. It's so ordinary, so mundane. There's nothing special about it. But we go, well, then why are we practicing in this way? No, that doesn't make any sense. But it is the way that we practice. We have to see it so we don't are like reaching for the sky. Why would we want to try to reach for the sky? I want my hand to turn blue. If I put it up high enough, maybe it'll turn blue. No, it doesn't work that way. We have to see things from the Buddha mind. This is mind work. When we practice mind work, everything is in perfect order. Nothing is out of place. Isn't that what the Heart Sutra said? Form is not other than emptiness. Empty is not other than form. Form is precisely emptiness, precisely. Not one little thing out of place. It's like when you see those people, not me, certainly not at this time of my life, but those men or women, they're combing their hair all the time, and they're combing it, and there's not a hair out of place. It's perfect, a perfect coiffure. And the mind is just this way. It's just perfect. But it doesn't have to be a perfect haircut or a hairdo. It just simply is reflecting mind. The ocean is reflecting mind. Everything that happens is a reflection of mind. You have to really contemplate this. This is mind work, contemplating how everything comes into being. There is no individual. Even in Buddha Dharma, gods are created. Gods have a finite life. Now, to some, that might be sacrilegious to their religion, but it is in this way, in the way that we see things, that we see that everything from heaven dwellers to hell dwellers is a finite life. If not, then there would be no hope. But this too was a movement in Buddha Dharma, where it moved away from an everlasting, eternal aviki hell that could only be described as somebody standing in line at Disneyland in perpetuity with never getting on a ride. Some kind of a hell like that. It was no longer. Everyone has a way out, has an exit to it. And this is why it was so important that Disampusa, Earth Door Bodhisattva, and I hate to butcher the name, Senta, you can say Kitsi Garbaraja. How do you say it?
Shiti Garbha Raja.
You see, I said it right. And so that was the importance of Disampusa. Disampusa was showing that even hell dwellers can get out. This was also an important Mahayana development in terms of these things. They were fine-tuning. I cannot say they were different in their doctrine. They were just simply the fine-tuning of Buddha Dharma as something that develops. You could say when the Buddha began, you could acquaint it to a bottle of wine that has just been bottled. It's drinkable, but it doesn't quite have the subtleties of a bottle that's 50 years old, much less 2,500 years old. And so there is a fine subtlety in there over the course of many, many years and many debates and much contemplation that brings this to a full body. The full body is simply the Dharmakaya. When we practice, our mind is in the Dharmakaya. We've talked about Nirmanakaya. Nirmanakaya is essentially what you can call an appearance body. Is it the Buddha? Yes and no. Is why I said yesterday that what does Manjusri's sword cut? And it cuts the Buddha. And people were very surprised about that because they were going, it cuts discrimination, it cuts this, it cuts illusion, it cuts all of these things. Oh, let's just take it off at the top. It cuts the Buddha. Some of you might say, well, that's sacrilege. You know, that's horrible. How can you say that? But many of Master has said, if you're meditating and the Buddha appears before you, cut him down. You should not have any conception in your mind. And so this idea of cutting is very interesting because you have to look at Manjusri. And this is an incredible contemplation that we look at, because in this contemplation, we say this has a double-edged sword. So not only is it cutting this way, it's cutting this way, and say, what could it cut? Really, what could it cut? we get confused about that. We don't understand the esoteric or the profoundness of the Buddha mind. We cannot know it, but if we contemplate, we get a little peek. We change the way that we look at things, the way that we see things. So this contemplation is not the contemplation of thinking about something, where you just want to sit in a chair and think about something. It is not that contemplation. Contemplation is that you have already thought about it, you've already studied it, you're practicing it, but when you sit, you just sit. Just let it be. When you get up then, when you're up and moving around, you just let it be as well. Your mind is still in contemplation. Does it not have thought then? Is it, I think Hema was saying, well, does the mind not have thought? But like Hui Ning, he was saying that his mind has thousands of thoughts, but they don't stick. They're just functional thoughts. If I need to stand up, then I have an unconscious thought to order my legs to move and all the muscles to move. I don't have to summon up and tell all of the muscles to get up. That would be very tiresome, right? Okay, I don't know muscles, but you'd say, okay, your thigh muscles, calf muscles, knees, okay, start moving, glutes start coming in, push up, push. Well, we don't have to do that. So why do we do it with our thoughts about everything else? When we use the Buddha mind, those thoughts happen, but we do not have to hold on to them. It would be hard to do that, like you're standing up and your muscles are going, we're standing, you still want to stand? No, just leave me alone. I'm in the present moment. Yeah, but we're in the present moment and we want to know whether you still want to stand or you want to sit. We need to know that. No, you don't need to know that. And in the present moment, you don't need to know and have an opinion on everything. So you do not have to be a judge of the world. When you're a judge of the world, you judge everything. Oh my gosh. When I was in my 20s, I was the judge of the world. And so if I heard a baby crying, I would go, oh my gosh, that's so annoying. Why don't they take them out of the restaurant or whatever? It would bother me. Anything would bother me because I was a judge of the world. I was judging everything. It's too hot, too cold, too loud, too this, too that. And then you just let it go. You just see things just as they are. You don't have to worry about it. Everything is transitory anyway. It's temporary. I've often said, come back in 100 years and let's see if I'm not right about this. Okay. And again, I also say, if you come back in 100 years, for all the rest of you, if anybody's around, run. Because you'd be definitely an abomination at that point. So we have just this tiny little time here on earth in this body. And we cling to it like holding on to a candle that's lit. And we're just there holding on to it, completely oblivious to the fact that one day it's going to get down to the bottom of the wick and it's going to be done. Does that mean that the light went out? Is that what nirvana is, to blow out the light? And then we can move on to nirvana? It is in not in this way. Sometimes people say, oh, it brings the light to the world. I think that was in the mind work forum. One of my students was talking about how the mind work brings the light. And I say, in the darkness, is there not mind? Is there not illumination? Contemplate that. You see, because we start engaging in dualities. So the people that come to my mind work forum and they post things there, I correct them, not because I want to be super smart or clever or anything, because it's fine tuning to show there's still some duality that's there, and you have to see that. There was an interesting story, and this story kind of cuts both ways about, and I forgot the names of the masters, but they had made a campfire and they were traveling, and the one older master tells the master to be, he was not a master at that point, stir the ashes and see if there's still some flame there. And so the young monk, he starts stirring the ashes. And he says, there is no flame. And the master takes a stick from him and stirs deeper, and he could see orange still. And he said, there's still some flame there. What do you think that this means? This is the audience participation time. What do you think the master was saying? It's very interesting. He said, there's still something there. He could see the orange. What was his point? I can see all the screens flipping off now. You don't know? Anybody you don't even have a chance? Come on. Nobody knows.
Does it have something to do with clinging, Gilbert?
Clinging?
Yeah.
Is that what you said?
Yes.
I don't know. What do you mean by clinging?
Well, between the flames, the orange, and then if it was not, it was dead, it was not the heat or anything. The clinging to, like, is it a dualism, or I don't know, something.
Well, you're probing. At least you stepped up. So I'll give you a quarter credit. Okay. Anybody else? Come on. Nobody knows. I mean, you guys are just all there with a sheepish grin, and you remind me of when I was like a young boy, and my grandmother would always be telling me, you need to speak Spanish, you need to learn Spanish. And I go, and she goes, oh, with the no, you speak Spanish. So no sheepish grins. You need, what do you think? This is mind work. Yes, Robert. Oh, wait. But before you talk, no parrot. This has to come from your insight. Go ahead.
It's like mine is always there.
Okay. So what was his point then?
The point is, everything you saw is all the ignorance, all the dust. Everything is just appearing. All this appearance, all these are just phenomenon. Keep digging deeper, because mind is always there. See through it.
Okay. Anybody else?
I'll take a step with that even in what appears to be completely inert, that there is still activity. There's always the activity. You'd say activity of mind. There's Pratitya Samutpada, but there's never a thing that is really done. That's what I got.
Okay. Well, at least we're working towards something. Anybody else?
I would say he wanted to tell the student that he saw he senses there's still ego there. There's still clinging. There's still attachment. The work is not done yet completely.
Okay. This particular story is one that can be interpreted in many different ways. The way that Robert described it is, I would say, the more profound meaning. Most of the time people will say, oh, well, you still haven't made enough effort to look and you need to dig further. And that's kind of the initial way of looking at it and saying, there's you have to go into more profound, more deeper there. There's still something that one is attaching to. And so that has to be extinguished. But that to me would be like nirvana to blowing out the light. And the way in terms of the Robert presenting it and saying that when you look deep down, after all, when we look at emptiness, there is still mind way deep down. That is the mind. Sometimes they refer to it as amala vijnana. I don't know, Shaolin, have you ever heard that term? Amala, A-M-A-L-A, vijnana. Anybody?
Amala Chitta. There was Amala Chitta that I saw somewhere. I don't remember.
Alamachita would be like mind.
Mind.
Vijnana would be the consciousness. Sometimes they refer to it as the ninth consciousness. I don't like that term because that's kind of like adding a cherry on top of the eighth consciousness. It is just the eighth consciousness in its natural state of pure nature. And so when we dig down into the coals, and we still find something there. It's not blown out. It can never be blown out because that is our fundamental, what we could call consciousness. Because we need something to navigate. And so it's interesting because we look at it because we don't understand that. It is not a dualistic way of doing things. It is simply you could say, the background consciousness of the Buddha mind. Sometimes they'll refer to other things like Bhavanga consciousness. And Bhavanga consciousness is something that is kind of like there, like an amplifier is turned on, but it's not receiving any signal. And so this is from the other end, where we're looking at it and it's saying that everything that is amplified and appears is not other than mind. And so we cannot blow it out, right? So it's very interesting how we look at things. And it's important because this is mind work. This takes more effort, a little bit more profound, a little more esoteric. But in the end, practicing from this right view will save you kalpas of time to practice, okay? It will save you a lot of time. At least in this lifetime, you'll be able to understand the sutras all of a sudden. The sutras, to many people, are a mystery. They have no idea what they're talking about. They have all this fancy language and talking about billions of Buddha worlds and things. We don't know anything about that. A lot of times what we do is that when we get to something we don't understand, what do? Do you guys know? What do we do when we can't understand things? We just read the next paragraph. We just go beyond it. That's where you have to put the brakes on and go, well, wait a minute. I don't understand this. There is something there, but I don't know what it is. And I don't feel comfortable going to the next line until I understand this. Then it's not bad. It's not bad, because when you do that, you're working on it, and you're choosing to stay there and try to probe it, to contemplate what you've read. If you can do that and break that code in that manner, then whatever you read in Buddha Dharma will be clear to you. But if you just pass it by, or this part's boring, why is it boring? Because I don't understand it. Then you will never get it, because you're just rushing. You're just rushing through. It's like you have a TV remote, and you're looking at it, oh, this part's very interesting. It's like this. And well, wait a minute. They're talking about this. I don't understand it. And then you just fast forward to the next chapter or whatever. You don't have to do that. You have to apply the mind in the proper way. If you apply it via contemplation, it will come alive. It will become real. If you just simply read words, it cannot come alive. There was the story of the very sincere student. He was practicing with one master, and he was practicing for so long, and so the other, so he said, "I cannot get this," and so the master told him, "Why don't you go to my brother's temple, and perhaps he can help you." I'm going to make a long story shorter, but he returned back to his original master, but he had obtained a realization. And when he came to the master's chambers, he knocked and entered, and there was his master holding a scroll, looking at it, and so intently. And the student says to him, "What a shame! You're searching on the face of the scroll for the answers, when the answer lies 3 feet beyond the scroll." It is this kind of a practice that we practice. We add a dimension to it that's not on the printed page. When we read two-dimensional, and we think two-dimensional. But when we open to mind, when we start studying, it comes alive. We can see what is happening. We can see the Buddha walking, talking to Manjusri or to Maitreya, talking to whoever, and performing deeds and carrying on conversations. And we're there. And we're listening intently. We want to know. It's no longer just some kind of a study. It's an experience. When we experience in this way, the Buddha Dharma becomes not just three-dimensional, but four-dimensional. Because three-dimensional, we can see what is happening. The fourth dimension is we can see with mind what is the meaning, the esoteric, the hidden meaning behind this that we cannot see with our eyes. We cannot hear it with our ears. It has to come from the heart. And if we can do that, it works. So this is mind work. Whatever we do, we put a great effort in, but we are not looking for some scholastic meaning or solution. The solutions come when all of a sudden, all of these different sutras and treatises and everything just comes together and clicks. And there's no difference between them. Then whatever you read, whatever you pick up, you can decipher it. because you were looking at it using right view. You are not trying to pick up a bunch of rocks and call them diamonds. We don't do that. We don't need to do that. Mind will convert everything naturally. And that's the part we don't understand. We think that this world that we're in, that this is nature. And when we want to have nature, what do? We go to the beach and take off our shoes and rub our toes in the sand, or go to the forest and listen to the chirping birds and go, oh, this is nature. Be a hippie. The hippie days are gone. You want to be an environmentalist, be an environmentalist. But we are looking for a bigger quarry. Our quarry is actually looking for us. If you really want to know the truth, I am the hunter. I am also your father. I am also your mother. Gilbert is none of those things. He is the hunted. When we look at things and see the nature, then we say, well, let me think now. Humans, well, obviously they created the universe because they're here and Jesus was here, and everything in the firmament, they always talk fancy, like in the firmament, was there for our benefit, really. So I'm sure there's like 5 billion alien planets that would differ with us about that and say that you can't even pollute, to keep your own planet from being polluted, and you think you're the masters of the universe. You must be in some fantasy. This is not the nature of things. This is not the real nature. If you're in a dream and you're there, can you stay in the dream? What do you think? It's very interesting. You're going, oh, this is another Gilbert's trick John question. Can you stay in the dream? Gosh, you guys are so afraid of answering these questions. These are just simple questions.
Not forever.
Not forever.
If you choose to.
If you choose to.
You're always in the dream.
You're always in the dream.
We are a dream.
We are a dream. Well, at least people are starting to begin to chirp like spring birds. So that's good.
What?
Yes. So it's interesting.
What dream?
What dream?
Who is dreaming?
Who is dreaming? All of this is mind work. It's mind work. We're looking into and saying, is this a dream? If this is a dream, but we want to look at it and we want to say, oh, this is permanent. This is something. But look at it. It's not natural. It's not natural. Really? I mean, are we really the masters of this earth when we see things? I think the dinosaurs were here for a lot longer tenure than we were, and they were bigger than us. And so, sorry, I was thinking of a cheap joke that they were uncratered by some kind of a meteor or something. But in any case, our time here is short. In a dream, we don't really know how long a dream lasts. Sometimes I used to say something really silly just to make people think that this earth is just in a teardrop of a sad cosmic clown, the whole universe. Think about that. And then say, oh yeah, well, Gilbert, you're full of baloney. Really? Really? Am I full of baloney? How do you know? How do you know? But we are self-proving. We go, I think, therefore I am, so I must exist. I knock and I feel things are firm, so that must exist. On whatever we do, we see things in a self-proving way, but it's not natural. How do we know we're not in a dream? And if we're here, then how did we get here? And are we created in the image of some higher deity? It is why they admonish us not to try to search for the Buddha by his 32 marks. These are just simply the creations in mind. We really have to contemplate, to try to look from the other side. Even though we say from the other side, there's no this side and that side, but it is the right view orientation of looking at things. And it is using the Buddha mind perception to see things, which is not tied to the 5 skandha. We do not know that. We cannot know that. It's difficult for us to even begin to say that, but that is what the Heart Sutra was saying. It's all empty. You think that it's going to be real, but it's not. We don't understand that, and we can't, but we can practice. When we practice in the right way, then things come together. Well, I only went 3 lines into my notes tonight, so obviously I'll be talking about this tomorrow. So here's my notes if you want to have a quick look at them. All right, that's enough. So we'll continue on. I wanted to start this year with this to define what mind work is and what right view is. I think it's very, very important. It's so important. It's so important for not just our group, our mind work forum, but for the preservation of this precious Dharma in the coming generations. So we're not just simply trying to make ourselves look good and putting up makeup and lipstick and whatever to try to make ourselves look better. It's not going to happen. I mean, I gave up doing that a long time ago. No, I didn't really do that. But it's not going to happen. We're not. That is not the right approach. Doesn't mean that we don't practice those things. It just means that we understand the practice. Just as I had mentioned, it is that we understand why the ocean is blue, because it's a reflection of mind. And we look deep enough and we understand that. All of those things are from the nature of mind. Even the fundamental rules of samsara are nature of mind. And this is how we look at things, and we see things from the viewpoint that everything is natural. So this next week, look at things as natural. Change your viewpoint in terms of how you see things, and see things as natural. See things in a way in which you begin to understand why things are appearing, and it will help you. And understand this contemplation happens all the time. It is not thinking of anything, but it's not thinking of anything. It is just simply mind. And so I said a lot of what Ling Chi talks about, trashy talk tonight. So I'll stop there and open it up for questions.
Gilbert?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just wondering, as you're doing this mind work and you're opening your mind, you're being very careful to not attach. But one thing that can happen easily is you keep characterizing what's going on and you can get attached to non-attachment. You know, it's very subtle, but there's these things come up and you can say to yourself, well, I'm practicing perfectly. I'm not attaching to anything. And that in itself is an attachment. I just wondered if you could say some things about that, those kind of traps.
Sure. Anytime that the thought comes up in your mind that you're practicing perfectly, put it down. Because that is a trap. And the whole idea is that we do not abide in emptiness. We do not abide in samsara or appearances. There is a subtle balance between these points of existence and non-existence, and we are, as was depicted by the Professor Der Molen in the Madhyamika book, like a bodhisattva straddling both apparent reality and absolute reality, but not being in either one. Once we go to one side, we lose it. So it's not easy. So it's like learning how to balance on a board. Sometimes when I was learning how to surf, you'd have a tube like this and you'd put a flat board on and then you'd go back and forth. And then after in the beginning, it's not easy to do, but little by little, you begin to straddle and you begin to hold on. There's not too much weight on this side, not too much weight on that side. If it starts moving that way, you move this way. And everything is in this way. So so we have to be careful not to lean too much towards one. So you're correct about that. But anytime you say that, you know, that you've got it, you don't got it.
But
Okay.
if you say that you don't have it, if you're practicing imperfectly, that's not entirely true either.
That's right. That's why you have right view to understand that you're a dream. So you know, but if you do that, then you become a self-flagellant. You know, you start beating yourself, you know, and it's my fault, mi culpa, you know, and so that doesn't work either. So it's the middle way. That's why Nagarjuna, you know, said, hey, this is the Madhyamika school. You have to find this middle way, and you don't lean this way too much, or you don't get prideful on the other side. So you're right. So thank you for reminding that. David.
Oh, thank you, Gilbert. Thank you very much for the talk tonight. Yesterday, I heard a talk on the Watto. And what I wanted to ask is, can the Watto be applied to mind work?
Of course, the Watto is a practice in which mind work helps it tremendously, because then you understand what you're doing. So if you're using what is kind of like now in the standard, what is Wu, but to me, I think you can use any of the accepted Wattos, but now the accepted one is what is Wu, what is emptiness. The Watto is depicted as being meaningless. It's meaningless because it doesn't really, it's not really a question in the way it is. It is a means in which the mind is occupied by something so as to not produce other thoughts. But the emphasis on the Watto is to come from what you're saying to immediately back to the beginning. The Watto means before the word. And one places the mind there. Now, in the beginning, when we're using the Huatou, we're just kind of like one of those old time typewriters. And we're just doing that. Some of you who are young have no idea what I'm talking about. But anyway, it is in this way. But eventually, if we put the emphasis on before the word, then as it's coming back, we begin to arrive faster and faster. The reason that we arrive there faster is because the mind is quieting and the whole mental process is not being obstructed by thought. And as a result, it is functioning in the speed of mind, not in the speed of thought, not in the speed of samsara. So when it's functioning in the speed of mind, as one completes the Huatou and comes back, there comes a point where the time is not relative to the question, it's relative to mind. And the attention before the word can be there for, sometimes they say, a thought for 10,000 years, because it's not disrupting the Huatou. The Huatou now has no purpose because one has jumped to the mind ground itself. And so it is not that the mind has sped up, it is just functioning at the proper speed. Like, for instance, I don't know if you've ever seen experiments where they slow down the speed of light. Anybody seen experiments like that? Nobody?
No.
I don't know what you guys are watching. You need to start watching more of the Discovery Channel or whatever. They shoot light into some medium, and I forgot what it is. It might be something that's hyper frozen or whatever, and they actually can follow the speed of light through this tube. They've slowed it down for so much, so it has to be incredibly thick in order for it to slow down so you can see it. The reason that it slows down is because of the obstruction that it's traveling through. And so that slows down the whole process. In mind, it's the same way. The obstructions are there from all of the thoughts, desires, discriminations that are arising in mind moment to moment. Moment to moment is like infinitesimally small periods of thought. Thought moments are incredibly tiny. And beyond, tinier than nanoseconds. And so if you have all of these thoughts arising in mind in these nanoseconds, they plug up, they slow down the process of the mind. It's like working on your computer and having 25 windows open. It will work, but it'll take a long time for you to be able to boot up something because you're taxing your computer. But when you shut all those windows down, wow, press the button, boom, it's there right now. And that's what's happening with the Huatou. And I'll bet you dollars to donuts you've never heard that before, unless you've heard me talk about it. I'll bet you that. That's right view. That's mind work. That's how it works, is that the mind comes back to its natural speed. And coming back to natural speed, it makes appearances look like they're slowing down. Because the mind works at an incredibly quick speed. Speed of light, come on, give me a break. Maybe Sheng, the Monkey King, travels at the speed of light, but the Buddha's already there.
Yes.
It is just that way. So that's how that works. Okay, next question. Lewis had one, I think, and then Vadim.
Yes, Gilbert, I have a question, but it's about words, in particular, two words that mean different things but are the same: Dharma and dharmas. Why don't we just say that 10,000 things when we refer to the voidness of dharmas, and use dharma as the law, that the teachings of the Buddha? It confuses me why we use that one word for everything.
Why not? I mean, what are we going to call it? We could call it chicken soup. It's still the same thing. We'll capitalize the C. But it all is belongs to mind. So when we look at it, if you remember, I've often said that the Buddhas use the vexations of sentient beings, which is attachment to dharmas, as their way of practice. So when we look at things, we just see them naturally as they're appearing. It's all created by mind. We cannot separate it out and say, oh, this is good dharma here. This is good chicken soup. This is the one that helps your soul. And this is the bad chicken soup. You don't need to do that. Okay. If you don't believe that, I will tell you a story. There was once, I know Harry will get a kick out of this one. There was once this a young man. He was living in an apartment in New York, and he happened to be in the hallway and on a cold day, and he was putting his key in the door, and he started coughing. And the lady across, this nice Jewish lady, went, "Oh dear, you need to wrap yourself. You have to go out with a wrap around you. You can't go like that. You're going to catch a death of cold." Oh, so later on, he's in his room and hears, and she's knocking on the door. And so he answers the door, and there's the old lady with some chicken soup. And so every day after that, she'd be listening. And as soon as he got home, she would knock on the door and give him the chicken soup. And one day she heard a lot of commotion outside, and it was the paramedics, and there was police and paramedics and firemen and everybody there. And she was wondering, she's looking out the door trying to see what was happening. And the paramedics were wheeling out a body out of his room covered with a sheet. And she said, "Oh my gosh, oh my goodness, what happened? What happened? Did he catch a death of cold? Was he coughing? Did he have something, pneumonia?" And they go, "No, ma'am, too much chicken soup."
Yeah. Gilbert, Sherfu said that the Dharma with the big D is made out of dharmas with the little d's.
Well, same thing. I mean, it's all the, as I mentioned before, like yesterday, was that the of the three jewels, only one is real, which is the Buddha. The Dharma is not real, and the Sangha is not real. And so we have to look at it from this way. This is right view.
Gilbert, what you said yesterday, and Manjushri cuts off even that one.
Say that again.
And Manjushri cuts off even that one as an object from yesterday.
Yeah, and it's the way that we look at things, in the right view, and that is the true power of the sword. So anyway, sorry I bored you with my little story, but it is one of my favorite. What Harry told me the other joke that someday he can tell about the old lady and her son at the beach. I love that joke. But anyway, next question. Oh, Vadim, where are you from?
Yes, hi, Gilbert. I'm from Moscow.
From Moscow. Okay, good.
Yes. Thank you very much for the talk. One thing I wanted to clarify, if I heard you correctly, you said that we should not create obstructions in the present moment, right? And then you sort of listed these obstructions like thoughts, desires, discriminations. And I'm wondering, well, am I really creating them? It looks like they are getting into my head from somewhere. I'm not deliberately putting thoughts or desires into my mind, right? So how can I stop creating these obstructions if I didn't put them there in the first place?
It reminds me of another kind of a joke, and actually this was from someone from Lena Wu's group from the Lansing Buddhist Association, and Amy, and she was telling me a joke about, there was a comedian by the name of Bob Newhart. This is going way back, and he had this skit where he was a psychologist, and he would be listening to the people, and they would be going, I don't know what's wrong with me. You know, I just have this eating compulsion, or I have this smoking compulsion. I have this, and he would just be doing it. And when they finished, he'd just go, okay, just stop. And they went, what? Just stop. Why not? Why not? Why couldn't you just stop? I mean, and it made me laugh so hard, because there's so much truth in that, of just to say, stop, we don't need to. And it is what I was talking about yesterday too, to choose the Buddha mind over ignorance. So when we choose the mind, it naturally stops. When we choose the Buddha mind, when we choose ignorance, we create the habitual tendencies that will bring that up in mind over and over again, lifetime after lifetime. And so if we have a discrimination about something, the next time we see it, we'll have the same discrimination. It is just this way, because we do not know how mind works. But if we just stop, if we just leave it alone, we stop it because we know how mind works. If we don't want to do this, then we just simply choose not to do that. We just let the mind relax in the present moment. We are the ones that are agitating it, making it spin around. And we don't understand that. But it is because of Pratika Samappada that the Buddha mind works in this way. So it confuses us, and we feel like we're on the spinning merry-go-round where we can't see anything. And as a result of it, we've lost our nature, because we're tossed and turned by all of this adventitious appearances in mind. But these adventitious appearances occur in accordance with causes and conditions. When we understand that, then we have a chance. We choose. So you can do it. You just have to apply the Buddha Dharma to the present moment, okay? Just keep practicing. You'll get good at it. You'll get very, very good at it. And then unless you start going like, I'm very good at this, then that's no good. But if you don't, then, and you just let it be, it will come naturally. Just take time. It will come to you. Be patient. Okay? Okay. Any other questions? Yes, Michael.
Yeah, so this goes back to a comparison you made when you said, when you compared thinking to movement, and you said, we don't think, okay, now move this arm in this way, it's done naturally. But when we look at how the body learns movement in early stages, it goes through such a phase, at least when it comes to physical movements. Now, the question is, with regard to thought, isn't maybe a natural progression to overthink stuff first, to just because the mind has to learn and figure out how to not think, how to arrive at not thinking and staying in the present moment, as if it's a natural progression somehow, like a maturation process. This is the question, whether one has to go through such a stage naturally to reach no thought.
No thought does not mean that we do not have thought. No thought means that we are not attaching to the thought. Attaching to the thought is akusala, meaning that it's a sticky thought. Kusala means not a sticky thought. That is why Huineng was clear about it, even though he was talking about Wu Yin all the time. He clarified Wu Yin does not mean that one does not have thought. It is that one does not hold on to the thought. So as we begin to practice, in part, what you're saying is correct. It's practice, and so when you practice, then you will get there. And so that comes with time. You have to have patience. You have to have the right effort to practice. You have to have faith that it will work. If you have those things, then it will come. And so you put all of those components together, but all of those components are not anything but the Buddha mind. So when we practice it in the proper way, we will naturally bring the mind to this Wu Yin, this ability to not have sticky thoughts in the present moment, and then the mind will be settled. It does take time, though. I mean, it's not something that I wish, it would be like selling lightning in a bottle, right? But it doesn't work that way. You have to practice it, and you have to have the faith that it will work, and then it will work. But if you don't have faith, or if you don't practice it, it won't work. So little by little, it comes to people sometimes very slowly, or sometimes it comes very quickly, where there's a deep realization that is literally, I hate to use a parlance of the 60s, mind-blowing. It blows the borders of what you think is mind and expands it to the infinite. And it can be in a moment of time, a snap of a finger. And other times it just takes time. It's still the same amount of time, because time is relative. So it's not that we should not think in terms of this way. What we should think of is in terms of the excellence of the practice, like to bringing our mind to the present moment, to being aware, without having any kind of thought of gaining or losing anything. And then it will come naturally via the faith. Okay. So good questions tonight. Anybody else? Oh, there was Wendy, sorry.
Thank you. You answered to the question to just stop. If I knew how, I would, but didn't. Can you teach me how? Thank you.
You will never know. Because the I cannot know, but the practice is one I'm teaching you. That's what all this is about. This is why I was talking about mind work, and which I'll continue on next week, because it is the right view. Mind work is when we know how mind works, then we have an understanding about this. And again, this goes back to things I talk about all the time. Like if you wanted to be a computer repair technician, what would be the first thing? Okay, Wendy, what would be the first thing you would need to do if you want to be a computer repair technician?
Well, I would never be one because I'm not good at it. You have to go to take a course to learn how does it work.
There you go. You are in the computer technician Buddha Dharma school of how mind works. It's no different than taking a course on how a computer works. We know there's a central processing unit, and then there's all these programs, and And so then we see that these programs function, and if we have too many of them, or if we have a virus that slows the computer down, right? So the thing is that you're the virus. The
Right.
self is.
Right.
So by knowing that, that helps you, because then you know that you're the virus, you're the one that's slowing everything down. That's why I say you'll never know, because you're there going, I want to be there. I want to get this. Don't do it. Don't think in this way. Just think, how does mind work? That's the topic for today. So when you're saying, how do you do it? Just keep listening, keep coming back. You know, you've been regular. And so little by little, it's going to pay off. You're going to see how mind works. When we understand how mind works, voila. Since everything is created by mind, how could you not know why something is appearing in the present moment? It's precisely appearing, right? So we just set Wendy to the side and just use mind to see things. Little by little, Wendy will be an afterthought. Wendy's the one that says, you know, I don't like this food. I don't like this smell. I don't like this. I want this. I want that. You know, whatever it is, we don't need her opinion on things. It just slows everything down. Quiet, Wendy, quiet. I'm trying to pay attention to see what I need to say in the next moment. Blah, 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 blah. She's very bad. Don't pay attention to her. Quiet. I need to see what I'm going to say to her next. And so, or you're ordering food or whatever it is, it doesn't matter. The Wendy, the ego is problematic. Mind is not, and your mind is fine. You know, we'll do a diagnostic check right now to see. Yep, your mind is fine. It works perfectly. You can hear me, right? All right. So it's working right.
Yeah, okay.
No, just don't run the Wendy program.
Yes, yes.
Okay. If you run the Wendy program, then it's going to mess everything up. So keep coming back and understanding all of this is how mind works, so that when you're out in the real world, not just simply sitting and meditating and trying to leave for somewhere. Don't worry about that. Worry about this next moment and the next moment and the next moment. That's the true practice. That's the game. Meditation is just a practice field where you practice not letting Wendy get control. But what happens when you're meditating? Wendy's there. How long has it been, you know, that we've been practicing? I'm hungry. I'm sleepy. I'm cold. You know, I have to do this, whatever. Please, we just set that aside. Because if we can't do that sitting on a cushion, how can you expect to do it when you're moving around? But if you understand that, then life is easy. It's like a hot knife through butter. Why? Because we don't give in to the ego. If we give in to the ego, we have joy, but we have suffering. A lot of suffering. And in the end, more suffering than joy. But if we practice in the right way, we have experiences, good and bad experiences, but we don't discriminate and say this one's a good one. It's going to last forever. No, you have a birthday party. It's not going to last forever. You know that, you know, and you have a bad day. It's not going to last forever either. We're just aware moment to moment what is happening. It's not bad. It makes the world a lot easier. Okay.
Gilbert?
Yes.
Yeah, could I just tell a brief story about Sherfu, which I think you
Go
can
ahead.
judge if it's relevant? So this was in the early 2000s, and I was in Sherfu's quarters at DDRC, and I was sweeping up his room. And I had a big pile of dirt, and I was sweeping it, and there was little left, and I was trying to get it into the dustpan. And I noted, I felt that someone was looking at me. And I turned around, there was Sherfu. He had this look of disdain on his face. And he said, "Give me that broom." So I stepped aside, and he did sweep, 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 3 sweeps, All of the dirt went into the dustpan. They picked it up and I looked on the floor. There was not a single speck of dust. And I had been trying to sweep it. And, you know, I was just leaving all of this stuff like this. And I just don't know quite how he did it. So it was, so somehow that came to me when you were talking about these things.
Yeah, it's funny because my father taught me how to sweep when I was young. I never forgot it, you know, and it's just sweep, 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 you know, very abrupt, quick, and it's over with. But if you're going like, all you're doing is pushing the dust around. But I understand your story, and that it's a good story, you know, in terms of that. I will finish with just kind of a well, I don't know if it's a humorous story because but I was also cleaning Shifu's room and the bathroom. I was in charge of the bathroom, so it was Shifu's bathroom, so I really wanted to clean it up really, really good. And so I was going, but I don't have anything to clean it with. So then I saw that there was this towel, really dingy gray looking towel that had more holes than it had cloth on it. And I went, this is the one that I'll use. I mean, you know, obviously this is the cleaning towel. And so I cleaned the bathroom so well, sparkle, everything so shiny, you know. I was so happy that I made the room clean for Shifu. And then after the break was over and he was talking, and before he began his lecture, he says, one of you, you know, has no respect for people's personal property, and you use my personal towel to clean the bathroom. This is not good. And I'm going, I resemble that remark, you know, and how was I to know? I still feel bad about that, you know, that I was so presumptive to do that. But it was like, easily there's not one of us that wouldn't have thrown that towel away many years before. But that was just an example of Shifu's practice and how you know, he didn't throw things away that still had function, you know. So it's interesting, you know, those kinds of things they help us understand the world a little bit better and appreciate things more in terms of what we have. Okay, we'll continue on next week. I like the way this mind work lecture is going. I think it's going to be beneficial for us as we go along, and it will set the tone for what my lectures will be later on in the year. So have a good week. Stay safe, I hope. And if you have COVID, then, you know, I'll send my blessings to you and send my blessing to the others to try to protect them. I'll do my best, and we try to protect each other. Okay. Omitofo. See you next week.
Thank you, Gilbert.